manage the crowds of people and decide what is class.
Agreed with you, Paris. You see, however, if we were to say whoever is already deciding anyway has the ability to decide, would that be a problem?
Okay, so you mean establishment, so the people who are in charge.
We are governed by the establishment, we are governed by the rules that dictate how I say. For example, if I walked into a group of Africans and I used pejorative words, what would happen?
You get beaten up.
But if there was a police officer next to me, what would happen?
Probably
there's a likelihood I may say something which would get me arrested. Now, I go there and I come out with all sorts of expletives, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Someone is going to say, this guy's lost it. But is it a reasonable defense for me in those circumstances?
No, I mean, again, it's the scenario you're giving is like
a realistic one.
Obviously, if you walk into a group of people and you use pejorative terms, then if they get offended, then it's at your own risk.
Okay.
And so the problem is that, and I understand, so somebody needs to police the people.
But here, agreed. But here is the problem, Paris. If a group of people collectively, and I'm bringing it directly to what we are discussing, if a group of people are just considered to be terrorists for no other better reason than people thinking that they are terrorists, what kind of negative impact is it going to have on the people?
Well, people will believe that group of people are terrorists.
Absolutely. Now, history informs us that if enough is said about a group of people, to the extent that people are then desensitized towards that group, you will find that no matter what kind of atrocities are committed against them, people won't find it a problem.
Okay.
Yeah? But you know what, interestingly enough, that all started as a result of speech.
Oh, okay.
The question is, what do we do now?
Okay, now I hear your questions are leading questions, like in a way. Like I understand what you're saying. So it needs to be policed because otherwise, I mean, the people need to be policed in what they say because otherwise, if we just start saying this group of people are like X, Y, and Z over and over again, then that group of people could become victimized or seen as the other, seen as not.
They will be seen as the potential criminals.
Potential criminal. I understand what you're saying. So who comes in and then who decides what
exactly
we cannot say.
However, the concern, and it's a right concern that you are raising, look, no matter how brilliant the rule is, no matter how brilliant the law is, the issue is this: you can't govern everybody. There's going to be some, we call them idiots. There's going to be one idiot who is going to say, hey, you use pejorative words. But the question is, then it comes back to, you know what I said about raising the bar. If we were to have the right kind of teaching, what will we expect the result to be?
If we had the right kind of teaching?
Again.
You mean if we do come in and we do decide?
And we decide we want to raise the bar.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example then of how it could go wrong. Somebody mentioned this today actually, and it wasn't even in my head, but somebody said that in France it's illegal, it's an offence to deny the Holocaust.
Yes.
So it's a good example. What if you just deny the Holocaust?
Agreed. However, what we need to consider here, they didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, it's a criminal offense to deny the Holocaust.
No.
Do you know how much pressure was put
on them to do that?
I mean, worldwide. Yes? Why should one deny something that is not directly observable? Or why should one accept something that is not directly observable? in this case, the Holocaust. Yeah, I'm saying it from both sides. I'm not saying I'm denying or accepting. The point is, it started off with a group of people who said, look, allowing this to continue the way it is leading to the potential persecution of a group of people. Yeah? And so, if you allow this kind of narrative to continue, it is going to potentially cause yet more problems for this group of people. Where are you going? Oh, yeah. Don't worry.
Bye.
Go ahead. Yeah, so they said. I know, don't worry. Yeah, so the question is, they knew that, look, unless and until it is criminalized, there is the potential. But you know what? Was that not just speech?
It wasn't just speech.
The denial, wasn't it just speech? If I deny the Holocaust, it's mere speech.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah? But it has become criminalized.
Because you're saying what it leads to.
Because the reasoning, you see, when laws are being enunciated and laws are being passed, there is a reasoning behind it for why they need to adopt the law for the benefit of society. Yeah? If we look at it on a cursory note, why would you ban somebody saying, I deny the Holocaust? Why would you make it a criminal offense? There was reasoning behind it. And it's the narrative that I was discussing. Yeah? If you are going to constantly talk about a group of people in a negative way, people will start getting desensitized. Yeah? And a classic example, honestly, Paris, if you click on any YouTube video, or in fact, forget that, any of the news, for example, Yahoo, the website, if it carries a story about a Muslim, yeah, I can guarantee you the majority of the posts, of the comments, are talking about killing, destroying, deporting, totally negative. Wait a minute, it has nothing to do with the rest of the human beings who consider themselves to be Muslims. But the narrative has started. And I'll be honest with you, it is a dangerous narrative. Yeah? You are vilifying a group of people constantly to such an extent that now people seem to become desensitized to any atrocities being committed against Muslims. Basically, just as an example, so although when people say freedom of speech, I totally agree, yes, but you know what, like everything else, responsible people will use it in an appropriate way. Irresponsible people, well, that is why we have laws to try and govern and contain this minority who seem to think that they have their way and it doesn't matter about the rest of humanity. So although, a lot of people talk about freedom of speech, which is, like I said, I totally agree with it, I have no issue. I would love to have the freedom to talk about things, but not to the extent where it might potentially cause harm to the other person. Yeah, like I said earlier on, if me and Paris are having a conversation and I am about to say something, then it behoves me to say to Paris, look, I'm about to say something, it may sound offensive, I don't mean it that way, but it is in the context of the discussion. Yeah, so it is vitally important to retain freedom of speech. Vital. Look, exchange of ideas can possibly be clamped down on if any kind of unreasonable control is put on the freedom of us being able to say what we want. You see, there's a difference here. The majority of the people talk about freedom of speech in an absolute sense. That's what they do. Oh no, we must have the right. Okay. Do you have the right? Yes. Can I also have the same right, but I will take it 2 times worse than you do? Then I will be told, no, you can't do that. Why not? Because we forget that when we are talking about freedom of speech, it is and has to be within the law. Yeah? So, like I said, if I were to say something which I was not aware was illegal, the police officer will still arrest me. If it went to court, in mitigation, I can say, look, honestly, I didn't know. And some statements, witnesses confirming I genuinely didn't know. But you know what? I'm going to have to apologize.
What about when, for instance, when we had laws like blasphemy laws, like
Yes.
even in the past here,
Yes.
and or like when we had laws, when we had views of how the universe works,
Yeah.
like how the sun and the earth was related, which one was the center,
Yeah.
and then people like Galileo came along and
Yes.
they said something
Yes.
contrary.
Yes.
They were people who blasphemed against the church.
So it was,
People who denied the current world
yeah, the worldview.
of
Yes.
the universe.
Yes.
They would be told that that's hate speech.
Yes.
They would be informed that that's hate speech, and they would be told they're not allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what, you're right. But you know what, like I said earlier in Paris, restricting it to such an extent, curtails the exchange of ideas. That's what I said earlier on. And the very thing you have mentioned is entirely appropriate in the context of the discussion. You see, when Galileo talked about the universe, or when these others talked about the model not being the way the church saw the model, okay? The power of the church meant that they were able to get these people imprisoned.
Yeah.
Yes? But that was not even any, to be respectfully, Paris, it had nothing to do with freedom of speech.
No.
It had to do with ideas, the way they held. Yeah? Now, watch this. He said, you know what, I think the world is not the earth is not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
They are saying, no, scripture says it is as an example. Yeah? Did he say something? Yes, he did. Now, was his ability to analyze things curtailed? The answer is yes. Yes? But the idea of freedom of speech at that time was, I would suggest, non-existent. Okay? At that time, there were certain governing bodies that had an absolute authority. Yeah? As things progressed, and as we found out more, there was a shift, yeah, from what you would call the religious governance. It moved away into what we call secular governance.
Right.
Yeah? However, the mistakes historically we see, we do not want to repeat. Yeah? So when the idea of freedom of speech came, I can, in our contemporary history, I can trace it back to the time Salman Rushdie released his book Satanic Verses. Okay? Then it all broke. People were saying he should not be allowed to write this book. The book should be banned. The book should be burned, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Okay? Then started a momentum. Wait a minute, you can't stop us from writing what we want.
Yeah.
You can't stop us from saying what we want.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
However, my view is that if language is going to ultimately extend to a situation where people are going to be killed, as happened in Germany, then we need to reevaluate exactly where we should draw the line.
Yeah, except what about, I understand, I think what you're saying is really clarifies a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No problem.
I talk about blasphemy, yeah?
Yeah,
Back
sure,
when the
sorry.
church was in the medieval times.
Yes.
If you said something that was blasphemous, that would be deemed as hateful, and it would be deemed as leading people to hell.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're saying, you might get followers, and then those followers are going to go to hell. So it would be deemed as hateful,
Yes.
and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to have that speech.
Yeah.
Now like you said, that's the opposite of freedom of speech.
Yes.
They didn't have freedom of speech.
Yes.
So
You know what? I would agree with you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I would agree with you. You see, even today,
Yeah.
if I were to say, do you know what? I don't think there is a God.
Okay.
Yeah, if I say that, then of necessity,
Yeah.
any attribution to a man considered to be a prophet of God
Yeah.
also is out of the equation, isn't it? Logically speaking, if I don't accept the notion of a creator, then the very idea of accepting prophets goes out of the window also. Okay? Now, in certain places, that would be considered to be blasphemy.
Yes.
It would.
Yeah,
Okay?
blasphemy.
Now, we have moved away. Yes? Thankfully, our understanding of how the mental processes work have vastly improved. Yeah? We have got a situation where our understanding of what has been brought to us, yeah, even as a believer, okay, if we look at the evidence itself and the information, you will find license is given to consider all these questions in an appropriate manner. However, if people are to misunderstand and misuse the rules, then you must have something that will be able to stop that. Yeah. So, for example, in the systems here also, and it is a good example to use, the legal system here, if it had a rule and we subsequently found that the rule seems to be illogical, unreasonable, then there will be a process to have it repealed. Yeah, that is what happens in the United Kingdom. Yeah, likewise, you look at the law of blasphemy. Yeah, and I say this respectfully, whoever comes to me to suggest to me that, look, this speech or this statement is clearly blasphemous, I would have something to say on a legal footing. Because these questions are related to legal elements. Yeah, the law of blasphemy, the law, we call it the law. Okay, but legal systems are very nuanced. Yeah,
Secular.
all legal laws.
Even the ones that are not secular.
Even those, like I said, if you look at the evidence, yeah, and assess it accordingly, you will find they are very, very nuanced. And respectfully, Paris, legal training is required to be able to decipher some of this. But you know what's happening nowadays? Lay people are picking it up and they think they are experts, formulating reasoning on it, totally flawed, and then start exhibiting in front of people.
I see.
Are you following? Yeah. So when a person comes and says, sorry, what are you on about here? Yeah? 9 times out of 10, Paris, they get emotional, they all get heated up. Oh, you're a terrorist, and off they go. that's what happens. But honestly, and I said this in humility, I have a legal background, and I have looked at all this, the blasphemy rules in Islam. I've looked at the old blasphemy laws here.
Medieval.
Yes, the medieval ones are also here. And you can see a clear trend that, look, whoever was interpreting this had got it totally wrong.
Right.
Yeah? Now, it's not easy to say depending on which part of the world you are in.
Yeah.
I grant that. However, like I said earlier on, we need to raise our boundaries collectively as human beings, yeah, and reassess all the evidence that we have and consider it on the information that is available today.
Yes.
Yeah, and you will find, honestly, Paris, I don't think there is any reasonable Muslim, yeah, as a Muslim I'm saying this, as a reasonable Muslim who is going to curtail freedom of speech the way we are talking about it. Like I said, there are confines, there are legal parameters, okay, beyond which you can discuss and say what you want. However, there is what you would call an overriding principle from an Islamic perspective. I'm just adding it in. The principle is a very simple and clear one, that whatever you say or do, yeah, make sure you do not hurt the feelings. Now the feelings means subjective. Yeah, do not hurt the feelings of people. Yeah, if it is within the law, it's a separate issue. But even outside that, as a human being, The most important thing that I must consider is my fellow human beings, and by extension to all the rest of what we would call creation. That is the animals and everything. Yeah, it opens up a can of worms about.
Everything you're saying is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
But that's like like you said, like you're talking about the secular idea of freedom of speech.
I'm talking about Islam.
So like, okay, so if like if you have a country
Yes.
run by Islam.
Yes, as an example.
Would you are you saying there wouldn't be a blasphemy law?
No, they wouldn't. But what I am saying, as I said earlier on, there are certain things which the law would require you not to do. So, for example, if I walked into that room again full of African people and I started using pejorative language, what would happen? There would be a certain restriction. But if you look at the law itself, it would have to be interpreted.
Yeah.
The interpreters of the law would be able to clearly tell you, wait a minute, freedom is there.
Okay.
But there are certain things which you would not be permitted to say. Yeah, just like this example I'm using. Yeah, and like I said, it is so nuanced and so, how can we put it, for want of a better word, complicated. Because legal systems are like that. Yeah. I said earlier on, I would be hard pressed to find someone who on a reasonable basis would be able to justify their position and state that there are certain laws, we call them collectively the blasphemy laws. I would say no. Let's have a look at the alleged laws and see whether they are giving you...
You come from a lawyer background as well. Yes. So, Anjam Chowdhury is a lawyer, yeah?
He was.
Right, so yeah, not anymore.
Yes.
But, so he's like really slight. So he said that no, it's a blasphemy if you I think he was really clear cut. I don't know if he was being, if he was deliberately trying to wind the people up on the news or not, but he asked him a question. He said, if somebody blasphemes, or what is it? No, if they openly state that they're not a Muslim anymore. So that's freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
Should they be killed in the apostate? And he went, yeah, they should be.
Agreed. Yeah, but you know what I just said earlier on, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I just said that anyone who legally considered it, reasonably would see that it doesn't say what it says. Now, you've taken the example.
Yeah,
we don't.
My question is he being reasonable about it or not? Like,
I would suggest when Mr. Chaudhry said what he said, I mean, we are not entirely conversant with everything he said, but I get the gist of what you are saying, yeah? If the person has left Islam, as an example of what he said, then again you would have to necessarily say to me that the legal system is in place to allow that. Are you following?
So, no,
okay, let me go. I'll run that by again. He said that if the guy has said something, he has committed blasphemy, and he has been taken out of Islam. Those are legal elements. It would require the legal system to state in definitive terms what he is saying. Now, here is an apt opportunity to tell you, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, you know, when you are considering legal issues, when you are considering legal issues and legal judgment, if you find an element of doubt, suspend the punishment after conviction.
Okay.
Now, I can tell you confidently, to find just an element of doubt in any case, even if it is watertight, you'll find it.
Well, in this example, I'm trying. When you say an element of doubt, if, like, say, you, let's go back to this. Well, let's not talk about.
I understand.
Let's talk about medieval here.
Okay.
And somebody went, oh, do you know what? I decided that I don't believe in the Christian truth or whatever.
They would,
and they openly proclaim it. There's no doubt.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
Right. If they openly proclaim it, was the law at that time telling you it would be a criminal offense?
Yeah.
Well, if it is, then you have broken the law.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Are you following? If the law at that time required you not to say or do certain things, then the legal system at that time, because you must remember, we are looking at this with the benefit of hindsight. Yeah? We are looking at it and thinking, well, that was not right, was it? Well, actually, if we were in that society at that time, it would be normal to us.
Right.
Are you following?
Sure.
Yeah? So, the question is this. If, no problem. If we were to take the same blasphemy laws today, I can assure you we will have a radical understanding of them as opposed to how they had. Why? What would be the difference between us radically interpreting it in a way that they didn't? Because our understanding has grown, information that we have had, we've got a lot more today. Yes? Our understanding of how human beings work has drastically changed. So, for example, we have got what we call the age of criminal responsibility. Yeah? Why shouldn't a crime be a crime? Does it require an age of responsibility? But we found that there had to be, because there are certain individuals who cannot be considered to be criminals because they are automatons. Yeah? They do things without having realized they have done them. Yeah? You have got diminished responsibility. You have got the law of insanity. Why these all developed? Because there was a time when, unfortunately, the legal system was so black and white that the circumstances of the individual were not taken into consideration. An example of that today would be what are known as strict liability offenses. Yeah? These are offenses where, as long as it is proven you have done them, you are guilty. You can then provide reasons for why, and then the judge will decide on whether to decrease the penalty or not. But all these divisions in the legal system came about because we started understanding more about human beings and how human beings operate. Yeah? So we are now left with a system here which is looking at us and thinking, right, wait a minute, a lot of people today will tell you, why is it that every time someone has committed a heinous crime, yeah, the victim is always the last to be considered? The first thing that will happen is experts will be employed to find out whether the mental faculties were all appropriate when he committed the crime. And so the legal system divided a crime into what they call the thinking and the action after it. So you find that at that time, if we were to transport ourselves into that time, me and you would probably be in the front row saying, kill him, kill him, kill him, because that is how the society was. But we have now moved quite far, and today, like I said, even Mr. Chaudhry, yeah, what he said, yeah, what he allegedly said, we are both going on what? Sorry. No worries. Yeah, it is clear that if you say something, you have got defense and prosecution lawyers. That they are looking at the same law, but how are they coming to different conclusions? So there is an issue of interpretation, and the prophetic guidance is very clear that whenever you are interpreting the law, and the potential is that it is going to cause severe harm to the perpetrator after due process, and you are able to find an element of doubt, then what would be considered to be the ultimate punishment must be suspended. But now I am saying, wait a minute, if the potential for finding doubt is available, I can guarantee you we will find doubt. You know what you just said, the example, that the guy has come in that period and said, I don't believe in a God. Yeah? We are surrounded by cameras. Yeah? Like your example, where it is clear cut, the guy is denying the existence of a creator.
Right.
Yeah? Does the law allow it? I now today can say, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the person. Why is he denying it? Yeah? Let's sit down. Why are you denying the creator? He comes out with reasonable reasons. Yeah? Definition of reasonableness, etc. Again, are legal definitions. Yeah? The problem we have here is a crossover between what would be considered to be the legal system and the arena in which matters like this ought to be discussed, as opposed to what we are generally doing. We generalize over issues which, in honesty, and if you want true justice being done on the subject matter, then it should be dealt with in the appropriate arena, which in this case would be the legal systems.
Okay.
So I know we started with freedom of speech and we went.
It's interesting having a conversation with you because of your legal background. That's very
yeah, thank you.
And it's because it's something that I think I haven't really considered.
Right, I see, yeah.
The way everything is legal. There's there's legal aspect.
Exactly.
Every nuance.
There is.
Of what
it
you're
is.
saying, what you think.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
now you see, if me and you, like we are right now, we're having a conversation, and the conversation entailed in me saying, okay, you know what, Paris? Let us assume there is no God. And some third party only heard what I said. There is no God.
Okay.
And off he went, reporting to everybody, man, that Shabir, he says there is no God. Well, I never. So, somebody comes and says, wait a minute, come here, Shabir.
So now they have to question you to find out more.
Yeah, and then you are thinking, wait a minute. Yeah, sorry, yes, we are having a conversation, we are exploring certain things. Okay, can you call Paris? What were you discussing? Oh, we are discussing X, Y, and Z. Okay, you know what, tell that guy, hop it. Apologies, Mr. Yusuf, off you go.
Sure.
Yeah, but that has to be, or there has to be a legal framework for all this. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, a lot of human beings, and whether it's Christianity, Islam, or any, they usually would talk about and discuss a matter without realizing that this ought to be discussed in a legal framework, because the very discussion is on the basis of something that can be considered potentially a criminal charge or offense.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No problem, you're most welcome. Can I give you this? If ever you get the chance, this is our channel here.
Oh, is it your channel?
Yes, and that's me there. If ever you need to give me a drop, Shabir.
Is that like Speakerscorner?
Yes. All truth. If you just type all truth revealed, one word.
Shabir Yusuf.
Yeah, will come up.
All right, thank you. I came today actually to see. I never come here. I've been away.
Really?
Traveling, yeah.
Okay.
So what I was doing is I was keeping up with what's going on in the UK.
Yes.
Through Speakerscorner
Okay.
online. It was
Right.
an odd. It connected me.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
To London, and
Right.
the personalities, the ones who are very animated, I didn't see them here today. It's really.
Don't worry, they'll be here just a bit later on.
Oh, a bit later.
Yeah, they'll be here. So go and have something to eat or drink or whatever and come back again. I'm sure you will
How
find.
long does it go on for? Like
It actually, it goes on up to about 7, 8 o'clock sometimes in the evening.
Seriously? So people
Yeah.
just
But we travel quite a distance, so our cutoff time will be around 10 to 5. By 5 o'clock we have to be back on the motorway.
Right, where are you going back to?
We come from near Manchester.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. We left at 6
down
o'clock in the morning.
No, you don't come here every week then?
No. I wish we could, but we can't.
Yeah.
It becomes a bit too expensive and very tiring. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So we leave at 6 o'clock in the morning from there, get here for about 11:15, have conversations with good people like yourself, 5 o'clock, run back on the motorway and off. Yeah, by all means, have a look.
Shabir, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that your name?
If ever, yes, that's me. If ever you need to contact me, Paris, there is my
All
email.
right, thank you very much.
A pleasure speaking.
Brothers and sisters, we have purchased a property to establish a masjid in the capital of Norway. By supporting our masjid, you will inshallah gain the reward for gifting Islam to our community. Imagine the children memorizing the Quran, the lines filling up for the prayers 5 times a day. the non-Muslims discovering the beauty of our deen. Subhanallah, all of that reward can be yours for a small donation. Allah said, believe in Allah and His Messenger and donate from what He has entrusted you with. So those of you who believe and donate will have a mighty reward. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever builds a masjid for Allah, Allah will build for him a similar house in Jannah. Click the link to help and gain the mighty reward promised by Allah. Also, please help us reach more people by sharing the video. May Allah grant you a palace in the highest level of Jannah. Ameen.